Hello again, everyone. This is Josh Morales from Falafel Software, and welcome to the follow-up video for the TechRewards challenge, in which I open the project in the Unity for HoloLens version and attempt to run the same application from the previous video with the two cubes attacking each other in the HoloLens emulator. Now, I'll admit that I did actually run through this already off screen, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to reproduce the result again for the video, and I'll walk through some of the things that I did encounter and how I overcame them, so that hopefully it'll still be useful to anybody watching who may be attempting to do something similar or may just be curious about the relationship between the original Unity and the HoloLens version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by opening the same project that I created for that challenge video here, and you'll notice that I am running the Unity HoloLens preview. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that same project here. And it tells me that it was opened with a different version, and opening in an older version obviously is not supported, but we're not doing that here. So it is going to likely re-import everything, which it does. So I'm going to let that run. And here we are. So you'll see that I actually do have the same layout and the same output. We got the two cubes floating in the skybox, just as we did before. If we hit play, we should get a similar result of the cube launching toward the player. So out of the box, the original project works as is. We don't really need to do anything. So the last time that I did this, I actually started by deleting the main camera and then importing all of the assets from the HoloLens toolkit that I had previously shown. And this is something that's available on GitHub, and it does include a number of prefabs, specifically a camera that is configured already to run in the HoloLens, representing the user wearing the HoloLens, so that the camera is the field of view of the device itself. Now, it turns out that although this is helpful and probably certainly recommended, it isn't strictly necessary in order to have your Unity application run in HoloLens. So while I did do that in the first run through this, I actually want to go ahead and show what I learned by going to the HoloLens documentation . And actually, what I really want to do is go to the section in the Dev Center for Holographic, and then navigate down to the Holographic Academy, which has a whole bunch of resources that go actually further, at least from what I've been able to find, than some of that documentation. Specifically, this Holograms 100 gives an excellent walkthrough of setting up your environment in Unity for the HoloLens, which I'll dive further into in a little bit to solve another problem that I had. But first things first, it does actually show you how to set up the camera, specifically by changing the clear flags in the drop-down for the main camera in the inspector to the solid color for black. And that's actually probably the most important thing that you need to do. And really, to change the existing project to work with the HoloLens, we just need to modify the camera. And it states to place it at origin, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, which means I'll probably have to move my box around, but that's okay. I'm going to take the enemy box and pull him this way. And let's go ahead and take the player box and pull him a bit further out too, so that he'll hopefully be in the field of view. All right, so most importantly, the camera. So we need to change from skybox to solid color and change the background to black. So now this looks a lot more like the HoloLens experience that we had seen previously in our Hello World project, namely that the black represents, everything that you'd see through the device, and the rendered objects are now the only thing that'll actually be projected into that world. So we'll go ahead and save this, and here's where I had the next trouble, in which I wasn't quite sure how to configure this project to properly launch in the HoloLens if you leave the project in its default state from the original Unity and the build settings here. So if I select Windows Store, we'll switch to that platform and we'll change to Universal 10, just like we would have done for a regular HoloLens project. When we save this and build it, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'll pause while it does that. Oh, put this first in the app folder. Okay, so that's built, and now we'll open this project in Visual Studio. And as always, the first thing we want to check is to make sure the platform is x86 and that the device selected is the HoloLens. So we'll go ahead and build the solution and then run it in the emulator to show what happens when we run this project without making any changes to the build configuration. So I'll go ahead and pause this while the emulator fires up. I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so the HoloLens is fired up, and now we'll just wait for the app to deploy. And we'll see what this original Unity app that we didn't really modify other than the camera looks like when it's running the HoloLens. So as you can see, it fired up inside of a window rather than taking the full spectrum of the emulator and rendering it in the 3D world. So it's rendered it as a 2D application inside as if it was just any XAML app that you can like pin to the wall or have it follow you around. And let me go ahead and place this here. And once we do that, we see everything kind of goes a little haywire. So this is actually expected now that I really think about it, because we're running it at a Unity app that was not really designed to run in the HoloLens under the configuration of the HoloLens, and it's just doing the best it can do. So that makes total sense, but I wasn't quite sure what I needed to do to fix it. So let me go ahead and show you that by going back. Actually, let me go ahead and close this first. And I'll go back to the Holograms 100 page. And if we scroll down, we see here that there are some export settings within Unity to enable the application to run properly in the HoloLens. If you look closely, everything looks pretty similar. We're going to select the Windows Store. The build setting are going to be Windows Store. We're going to set the build type to D3D. But if you look right here, there's actually an additional property that I did not see next to the build settings called Player Settings. So if we go back to Unity and in the build settings window, sure enough, here is the player settings. And the page specifies that in the other settings group, there's a rendering section with the option for virtual reality supported. And this is a property, I'm guessing, I don't know this for sure, but it makes sense that this property is new and specific to the Unity version that is for HoloLens. I didn't verify this in the previous version, so if it is there, that's kind of neat. It was always there. But for our purposes to run this in the HoloLens emulator, we need to make sure that we enable the virtual reality option and select the virtual reality SDK for Windows Holographic. And actually, now that I say that, it doesn't make sense that this might have been in other versions for supporting other virtual reality devices, the VR devices that are out that are not, augmented mixed reality like the HoloLens. So it could be that just the SDK is present in this. Again, this is not my area of expertise, but it does kind of make sense. And ultimately, what does really make the most sense, obviously, is that the virtual reality option needs to be checked. And interestingly, there was another setting here under the project settings for quality for Windows Store to select the fastest, which was interesting. This says here that it's tuned for the fastest performance rather than the best quality, which I found curious, but I guess given the lower powered nature of the device as compared to, say, a PC, that this isn't an unreasonable property. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the project settings under quality and select the option here under Windows Store for the fastest. So there's a drop down here under the Windows Store logo, and we'll go ahead and select fastest. So for Windows Store, that's what we want. So we'll now save this and verify again player setting that we have selected the Windows Holographic, and we'll go ahead and rebuild this. Now our Visual Studio project has been updated, so we'll go ahead and reload it and then rebuild it. Now that that's done, I'll make sure to select the TechRewards Challenge project and launch that in the emulator. So now we see we get the full screen logo, and I think Let me kind of pull back a little bit. I think the cubes are, there we go. They're just out of view. I think I may have messed up the camera position a little bit. But now you can see we get the 3D view that we expected. And so it looks like that's really what made all the difference here. But as you can see, it is the same exact application with the same exact behavior of the two cubes, with the player cube being continuously bombarded by the enemy cube. So the exact same Unity application without modifying anything other than the camera, the build settings, and the player settings was able to render the same holographic objects in the HoloLens emulator, and I would also expect the HoloLens device. So when Unity says that it now supports the holographic platform, they are not kidding. It totally does. It's the same project, the same code, the same assets, the same experience. Well, actually, I would amend that by saying an enhanced experience, because this thing is right in front of you. So yeah, I hope that this made sense to you. I hope that it was useful and helpful in showing how you could take your old Unity project and repurpose it, adapt it to run in the HoloLens. Now, I will add that there's certainly a lot more to it than just reopening the project and changing the settings. There is an entirely different paradigm in the terms of the user experience. And we'll talk more about that in the next video, because in the next video, I plan to take the HoloLens, the Unity. So from the Unity website, under the Learn section, there's a whole series of tutorials, and I want to see just what's involved in adapting these to run in the HoloLens. So stay tuned to that. We'll start the next video by looking at the rollerball tutorial. And this looks really exciting. I am really hopeful that I'll be able to recreate this experience of the floating objects for you to collect. And we'll talk a little bit more about what's involved in that and what I expect and the experience, and we'll run it through it together. So I hope you join me. In the meantime, as always, I hope this was helpful, and I hope to hear your feedback as you endeavor on your own HoloLens journey. So keep in touch. Reach me on Twitter at Celeron.net or through, of course, falafel.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.